Hey guys, I'm Callie Lewis.
And I'm John P.
We have a special treat for you guys today.
Ed Begley Jr. is in the house. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. Stay tuned. You're watching Geek Beat TV.
All right, we're joined by Ed Begley Jr. via Skype. Thank you so much for joining us.
Callie, John, thanks so much for having me on.
What a pleasure to have you here.
All the way from California. Isn't technology awesome?
It is. It's pretty nice. I love, I'm saving all that fuel. I don't have to fly or drive somewhere in a hybrid to see you. A few electrons, solar charged in my case. I got a lot of solar panels on my roof.
We're going to get into all that in just a second.
I definitely want to hear about that. Well, you know, before we get started, okay, some people are like, Ed Begley Jr., that name sounds familiar.
Oh, he looks familiar.
Well, oh, yeah, I recognize that guy. Why? Well, you are an actor, producer, director, and you have been, you have been in everyone's TV, you know, in the living room, on movies. You've been in lots of things. Let me see. I mean, the list goes on. Saint Elsewhere, of course, going way back a little bit. This is Spinal Tap. Goes to 11. You got to turn it to 11, okay? Pineapple Express, TV shows. You make appearances on so many. CSI Miami, The Good Guys, my favorite show of all time. Monk, Hannah Montana, Boston Legal,
the
6 Feet Under, Star Trek Voyager. Wow, 260 credits. That's what IMDb has for you.
Impressive.
I'm very lucky to still be doing it after, my gosh, since 1967. I guess that's 45 years this year. That's a long time.
That is amazing.
And not only have you done all of that, as I understand it, you're also the chairman of the Environmental Media Association and the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy.
Conservancy?
That's a conservancy.
That's a mouthful.
on the board of the Thoreau Institute, the Earth Communications Office, Tree People, and Friends of the Earth.
You are a noted environmentalist.
I don't chair those first two anymore, but I was chair for a while, and I still serve on those boards. I try to be of service and help out where I can, environmental groups and other groups like the Midnight Mission downtown LA, and because I've been very lucky, I want to be of service wherever I can.
Well, I love that you try and put yourself out there. One of the things that you've been really vocal about lately is that you're trying to completely go off the grid, which is kind of an out there concept for a lot of people.
That's hard to do.
It is. It's very hard. I never achieved that goal even when I was single at this little home. I have a 1,600 square foot home, little by Hollywood standards. By world standards, of course, that's a palace, 1,600 square feet. But I never could do it because I have a lot of shading that starts in March and ends in October. I'm sorry, it starts in October and ends in March. It's during the winter solstice I get some shading and leading up and after that. But with this new home that I'm designing, with some very good panels. I'm going to have some Panasonic panels, these bifacial panels. You get power from the top of the panel and bounce light from the bottom. So you get a twofer there with each panel. So I'm going to have those, and I'll have 10 kilowatts of it. So I should finally achieve that elusive goal of being off the electric grid.
All right, before we talk about, now there's a lot of benefits to being energy independent, if you will. But before we really into it, I guess, you know, there's kind of two different camps. There are people who care about the environment.
And then other people who just don't care whether they're green or not.
Or even worse, they think the whole thing is a sham and we shouldn't worry about it at all.
But the one benefit to going green, even if you don't care about it, is that you can save money. So
you can, and that's where I was raised. My dad was a conservative who liked to conserve, and I got all these ideas, and I got this ethic from my wonderful dad. We turned off the lights, turned off the water, saved strings, saved tinfoil. You know, he lived through the Great Depression. He was a son of Irish immigrants, so he died a few days before the first Earth Day, and I did it all to honor him. And what did I do in 1970? I'll tell you what I didn't do. I didn't buy solar because I couldn't afford it. It was too expensive. I did the cheap and easy stuff first, and right away I saved money. I had extra money in my pocket after a few short months, and then I invested in other things. You know, I started right away. I started recycling. I started composting. I rode my bike. I took public transportation, and I do all those things today. But then after a few months of that, you know, cheap and easy stuff, I had money to buy a little solar oven. cook some meals, and my natural gas bill went down a little bit more. I got a rain barrel to collect some rainwater. My water bill went down a little more. Pretty soon I could afford some attic insulation. You get the idea.
Yeah.
Cheap and easy stuff first, pick the low-hanging fruit, then some medium-hanging fruit, and after 20 years of saving from 1970, finally 1990, I could afford solar electric.
Oh, wow. I remember the first time I had to recycle. It was scary. I was in a public place. I hadn't done it ever before. I mean, it's simple as plates and cups.
Like separating them off, you mean?
Yes, exactly. I was
like,
scared
what if I mess it up?
So I love hearing, kind of your story, because you try and break it down for even people like me who hadn't even had any experience with it for so long.
Well, let's talk about getting started, okay? We've come a long way since 1970. There's a lot of things people can do. Right now, in fact, Ed, my wife and I are in the process of remodeling a home. It's an older 1960s, originally built in the 60s home, and so you can do a lot of things to it. Some of the things on our list: we are putting in all new windows and doors that are low E.
Right.
We're updating all the interior lighting with LED, and some stuff like that. What kind of things are you aware of that people could just start checking off the list if they want to go green and if they want to save money?
You're doing it right, John. You want to pick all that low-hanging fruit first, and some people do want solar, and when they say to me, Ed, I want to get solar, what should I do? I said, good, we're going to get you a home energy audit. They said, no, I'm talking about solar. I said, I'm talking about solar. I want you to do all the cheap and easy stuff first, and for every dollar you spend on energy efficiency, you will save $5 on the cost of your solar system or wind turbine, whatever you want to put in. And again, I'm not suggesting you even ever have to put up solar, but do that stuff anyway. Energy efficient lighting, like you're doing. Energy saving thermostat. Weather stripping around your doors and windows. Double pane windows, you're doing that. Do that. Great insulation also, the big thick insulation in the attic, and if you can, I blew some insulation into my walls. It wasn't that expensive to do. I did it years ago, and it really made this very old, inefficient house much more efficient. When you're doing a project like you're doing, you don't have to go through the rigmarole I'm doing to put the wall insulation, I don't think. But you do all that stuff first, and then other stuff in your lifestyle that you can do. Riding a bike if weather and fitness permit. Take public transportation if it's available near you. As I said, home gardening, home composting, all that stuff, very cheap. You will save money, and then you can move up the ladder, and only if you wish.
Speaking of riding bikes, we've heard a story about you riding a bike in the morning to create enough energy to power your toaster for toast in the morning. Is that right?
How does that work? How does that work? I imagine you having your bike hooked up to like a little generator and it running the toaster. How does that work?
Everybody thinks, and I understand why they do, because of the way we shot it, it looks like I have to ride the bike to make toast. I can make toast on a cloudy day or any day just because the solar batteries store that energy. But what the bike does is it hooks up to those same solar batteries. So when I ride a bike for exercise, in the morning when I'm not going to go ride on the street or on a trail, that energy, in a very real sense, goes into the toaster, into running a computer all day, a light bulb all day, and we calced it out. So with those 15 minutes that I did on the show, and famously people come up to me a lot about that, I wrote 15 minutes very hard, 120 volts at 2 amps, and that was enough for 15 minutes of that riding to toast 2 pieces of toast. And in a way, it really did go in that electrical bank account with the riding and come back out for the toaster. So it's a very real equation.
That's awesome.
It is awesome.
Now, in all fairness, okay, we're all fortunate that we're in good shape. Okay, some people, unfortunately, they can't physically. They couldn't ride a bike, or they can't. They don't have good mobility. One of the other alternatives that we're hearing a lot about is electric vehicles and hybrid electric vehicles. What's your take on that? We spent a couple of weeks with a Chevy Volt, and we actually really loved them. So Ed, what do you think about these electric vehicle options?
I think pure electrics are great. I've been driving pure electrics off and on since 1970 and nonstop since 1990.
Wow.
But the plug-in hybrids are great. The reason is, if you are a one-size-fits-all kind of person, you can't afford to have 2 cars or something, a hybrid and a pure electric, well, then you have the best of both worlds. You can plug it in and get about 40 miles, getting around a city like LA and many other cities without any problem. And then when you have to go longer trips, it's very easy to do. in this hybrid, you can drive from LA to New York. So it's the best of both worlds of these plug-in hybrids like the Chevy Volt and some of those other cars.
I think our experience with the Chevy Volt, and I know now, like you said, there's others. There's the Ford Fusion, Nissan Leaf, and all these others. We had a really good experience.
We did.
My normal car, I'm almost embarrassed to admit it, especially with Ed.
He's not gonna like this.
He's not gonna like it. I drive two different cars, but they get like 14, maybe 16 miles a gallon. It's horrible. But when I had the Chevy Volt, I got like 98 miles a gallon on average.
Yeah,
which
and I
was
got
impressive.
even better, and it's a very good way to go forward, I think, for even people like you who like fast cars and like to go that route.
Okay, sorry, I was just going to say, but you know what? When I feel guilty about the fact that I'm driving my big old truck that gets 14 miles a gallon. Now, there are actually things that I could do if I felt guilty enough about that. I think you've talked about something like TerraPass before. What's the deal with carbon offset type things?
Yeah, there's many ways you can use a carbon offset program. You can certainly use them to offset a vehicle that gets poor mileage. What I'm inclined to do is get the car that has the best kind of mileage, which is like a Prius or something like that. And then in addition to that, get the carbon offset. But here's what they do. They buy new green electricity from solar, wind, or geothermal, and they put it into the grid. So in a very real sense, you're offsetting, in a real sense, with new green electrons into the grid and eliminating the need for a coal plant, let's say, or a natural gas plant somewhere else in the national power grid. So those are good. There are other kinds of carbon offsets where they're planting trees, which is a laudable goal, a very good thing, or buying title, taking title to an existing hydro plant. That's more feel-good kind of stuff. It's better when you're putting new green electrons into the grid, in my opinion, and that's what those carbon offsets do. Use the best technology you can afford, and then in addition to that, buy the TerraPass to offset what little you use.
Gotcha.
Okay. So I'm curious, just being a gadget girl myself, if there was one thing, maybe even a gadget-oriented type of thing, that you would recommend for people to start the process of going green, what would that be?
Here's a simple one that isn't on a lot of the list, but it's starting to make some of the list. It's about vampire power or phantom power. Mm-hmm. Get some power strips and put them around the house for those things that you don't need on all the time. You think they're off, but they're not really off. They have a little transformer. They charge your cell phone, but you're not charging your cell phone now. Have a little transformer. They're running the speaker system for your computers, but you're not using it when you leave the house and you go to sleep. All those things that you don't need, you put them on a power strip and turn them off at night, turn them off when you leave the house. What you do not want to put on those power strips, but perhaps another one, is your fax machine, your answering machine, things like that, your router. You don't want that coming on and off and having to reboot each time. You pick a few things that you really need on all the time, clock, radio, whatever, something like that. And the other things, put them on those power strips, turn them off. You will be amazed at the amount of power you will save.
We saw some of that coming out at CES as well. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, that's one of the big themes that was just going around the latest CES a couple weeks ago. There, if you add it all up, every one of these little power, devices is pulling out 2 watts, 5 watts, 24 hours a day, and you use them like an hour or two a week or something. So yeah, that's a good tip.
And the kind of things they have at CES, and they have them elsewhere now, they have these power management systems, so you don't have to walk around to turn off power sources.
Yes.
It's all monitored by home energy, control system, and it does it automatically for you. And you can certainly turn things on or off with your smartphone from another location even. So some of these, energy management systems are very, very good too.
Yeah.
So let's look towards the future. You've given us some good tips for people to start small, but do you think that in the future we're going to kind of see a change in pricing models where it'll be more affordable for everyone?
I think so. A lot of these things that were so expensive before have come down in price. Certainly DVD players and personal computers, as you know, things like that have gone down. I think it's going to be the same with some of these power management systems and with solar panels and many other green technologies like that. I think the price will come down. Fuel cells, you name it. I think all of that will come down in price and make it a lot more affordable for the average Joe and Jane. Then you'll see a lot more of it.
I get the feeling that solar and the green stuff actually is moving along at a slower pace in terms of innovation or changing what we've got.
Well, I think
is that in my own?
Well, I know you're right. It's definitely slower. I don't think it's by design. I just think that the challenges there are a lot tougher. You know, reinventing a new light bulb. You know,
Yeah.
it's literally it's been done for 100 years.
Yeah.
Trying to have a quantum leap is difficult at this point. So the challenges they're facing are tougher. You know. But as they make those and as they begin to commoditize the products,
Yeah.
you know, solar panels, that's one of those things that for some reason they're getting more and more efficient, but they're just so costly to produce.
Efficient, not inefficient.
They're getting more efficient. Sorry,
Right, okay.
did it sound,
It sounded like inefficient.
I thought
Just want
I
to
said
clarify
efficient,
there.
but anyway, you know, I think hopefully they'll be within the reach of the general consuming public soon. So.
I hope so too.
Yeah, Ed, you know, we really appreciate you spending the time with us. And for everybody who wants to get more Ed, head on over to edbegley.com. You can also follow him
on Twitter, Ed Begley Jr., just JR, shorten that.
And also, you've got a TV show. Unfortunately, in Dallas, we don't get your TV show because we don't have that station here. But they can go to livingwithed.net and keep up with all the latest, right?
Thank you so much for all that. Yes, it was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. You have a great day.
Hope to see you soon.
You too, Cal. You too, John. Thanks.
Bye.
All right, you guys heard it. That was Ed Begley Jr. He's awesome.
He is awesome. What a nice guy. and a really a good model for the rest of us to follow. So.
Exactly. You guys can catch more over at geekbeat.tv. I'm Callie Lewis.
I'm John. See you later.